Alrighty, thank you and welcome to Character Area 6 Southwest Tempe Dotocracy meeting. My name is Brenda with Neighborhood Services. We're going to kick off with a short presentation of about 15 minutes. We'll then open it up to Q&A. Hosting and presented it today is Ambika Adhikari and Jacob Payne, and I'll toss it over to Ambika. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a little light attendance. I know more people have registered, so people might join us later on, but thank you for making time to come to this presentation. Like Brenda said, my name is Ambika Adhikari. I'm a principal planner with the Community Development, City of Tempe, and presenting with me Jacob Payne, the senior planner working with me. We have a couple of the staff in case there are questions later on. So we will start. Jacob, I cannot see the presentation. Start with some brief intros.
I'm sharing it, Ambika. Are you still having trouble seeing it?
Is it my setting? Are other people seeing the presentation?
Yes, okay on my end.
Okay, so maybe speaker view. Okay, yeah, okay. Now I can see it. So we have a couple quick agenda items for today. We just did the staff introduction. We'll talk about the character area planning process and the initial thoughts of the character area 6. And then the main agenda today is the Dotocracy, which is using the dot for voting. That is dot plus democracy is Dotocracy. We use that word. We'll allow you to have some votes and provide you with some dots. And then we'll also give you an indication of the next steps and timeline. And then finally, there will be questions and answers and discussions. This is the branding of the character area 6. You might have seen it. The people who attended the last meeting, we showed it, basically giving a glimpse of what can be seen in the character area in terms of the canals, the sideways, the art, the different varieties of building, the big boxes, the industrial areas, and the famous backdrop of the South Mountain. Okay, we'll talk about the character area planning process. Tempe is divided into 8 character areas. That was done. The character areas were indicated in the General Plan 2014, which is in effect right now. And then 6 of those plans out of those 8 character areas, 6 of those character area plans have been adopted. The one on the right that you see, those 6 pictures, are the cover pages of those 6 character area plans that have been approved and adopted. You can find all of them on our website at tempe.gov. The plan for the character area 6 is right now, we're working on it. This is the process. You are in it right now. And then the final remaining will be the character area 2. After we complete this character area 6, we'll begin that in the beginning of 2025. This is much easier to visualize. You can see the solid colors in the map on the left side are the character areas for which the plans have been completed. So character area 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, they have been adopted. The one that we're talking right now is on the bottom left side. That is the character area 6 with the orange hatching that we're working on right now. And the one on the top left with the gray hatching, character area 2, will be the last one that we'll work on next year. And on the right side, you see a detailed map of the character area 6. That is the task at hand. You'll see it's a little zigzag, but that's partly because of the city boundaries and partly because of the canals. So basically, this is an area south of the US 60 and east of the I-10, except that the town of Guadalupe is kind of, inside that. And then the southern boundaries are up to Ray. Those are the part of the Tempe city's boundary. And then the eastern boundaries are a little zigzag, basically canals and Kyrene Street and railroad tracks and some other elements that you see. So character area is basically an area that contains common design, land use, and commercial characteristics that are basically distinct from the neighboring areas. And the way they are selected is based on the similarities In A's, housing, design, architecture, aesthetics, landmarks, and other areas. And you'll see throughout the presentation, you'll see a lot of pictures. Those pictures are taken by the staff very recently of the character area. You know this area better than we do, but we have, just to give you a glimpse of how the character area looks like, we have included many pictures in the presentation. Now, how do we use the character area plan? It's a plan for the community. So it's your plan, and the people who live and people who have a stake in the area, for example, the people who have businesses and so on, they devise the plan. This is one of the series of many meetings that we do with you. And then after the character area plan is adopted, it becomes a reference for developers and other stakeholders. Whenever they want to propose any design, any new project, they look at this as a reference. And then the staff, when we review the development proposals, we use character area plans as a reference to make sure that the proposal is consistent with the principles of the character area. And then once the character area plan is adopted, it also becomes an important input for all the city plans, including the upcoming general plans, the transportation plan, and many other plans. And then, as you know, City of Tempe has council priorities and performance measures, and the plan's character area plan is consistent with that idea. Then whenever the city, in terms of its public investment on medians, public right-of-way, parks, canal side, and others, when they make an investment, they also use the character area plan as one of the references to see that, hey, what does the character area plan envisions for this area? So in a nutshell, the character area plan will be a very small document, typically between 40 to 60 pages with a lot of graphic. It does that scope of the high-level policy design, and then the vision is crafted by the community, like we are working with you. We have many surveys. One is already completed, the other one will start today. And then the document will also have a couple of pages on the character defining traits, including the history of the area and other characteristics that define that area. But the main component of the character area plan, the majority of it, is the design and guideline principles. So those principles are on the quality of design, bikeability, walkability, sustainability, on the landscaping, building materials, and so forth. That's the main component of it. And then on the public realm, like I talked about the sidewalks, the parks, the canal, and all that, there are also these design principles that are crafted in the character area plan. I also want to emphasize that the character area plan is not regulatory per se, so that there is no confusion. Character area plan is more of a policy. We do use it for reference for defining and reviewing many of the plan elements, but the plan does not really include anything that has to do with the land use and density changes. That's the purview of the general plan. Similarly, anything to do with zoning, the character area plan does not include it. That's in the zoning and development code. Any changes are through that process, and the private property owners can make an application, or the city can make an application for those. Similarly, on the private property rights, there is no change. We cannot, the character area plan cannot make any difference on that one. The residential commercial code compliance is a different process. We have a code compliance division within the community development department. Anything that you need to work on the code compliant or any complaint that you have, we go through that process. And in many of these meetings, people do raise the ideas about the public safety and homelessness. This is something that is not within the scope of the character area plan, so it will not be included in the character area plan in detail. But whenever you have any of those ideas, you can talk to us. We make a note of that, and we contact the appropriate staff that can help and respond to those kind of concerns. So for the sake of the clarity, character area plan is more of a policy and a directions, more of a design principles and directions, and not exactly on the regulation and the legal realm. Okay, we want to give you a quick highlight of the character area 6 in terms of its statistics. This comprises the map that I showed you before, comprises of about 6.21 square miles compared to 40.1 square miles of city of Tempe. The 6.21 square miles does include a couple of small county islands, totaling approximately 0.12 square miles that reside within Character Area 6. The population of Character Area 6 as of 2023 was about 28,500 compared to about 186,000 citywide. The median age is slightly higher compared to citywide. Median age on Character Area 6 is about 34 years compared to about 30 years citywide. As you know, citywide, we have a lot of students, so the median age is slightly lower. The household income is slightly higher in this area compared to the citywide, 72,000 versus 64,000. Housing units are pretty much proportional to the population, about 12,600 housing units in this area. And then the owner versus renter-occupied units in this area, this is more renter-occupied, 30% owner, 70% owner, compared to the citywide stats of 40% owner and 60% renter. So this is slightly hard to read, and this presentation will be shared on the website, basically giving a comparative racial composition of the two areas, Character Area 6 and citywide. The main takeaway is citywide, the minority area is slightly smaller than in the Character Area 6. In Character Area 6, the minority population is almost 50% of the total, and there's a breakdown with these different pie diagrams that you can take a look at it. Similarly, in terms of the employment, the largest employer in this area is Kyrene School District, and then the Honeywell, the Inside Direct Incorporated, Consumer Cellular, and so on. And in terms of the industrial sector, which employs the maximum people, manufacturing is number 1, warehouse distribution is number 2, finance is number 3, and so on. There are a couple images that we'll share with you of the area that we took the pictures of. As you see the autoplex, some of the landscape, and you cannot really escape the canal. Even Jacob's background picture is that canal picture that you see down below. And then many are like open spaces, canal side, trails, and then also sidewalks full of landscapes. And you'll see more of these very interesting building designs. That's the Supima Pima Cotton Center, IKEA, and Arizona Mills Mall. These are some of the really iconic areas in the Character Area 6. More images of the canal side, some of the arts, IKEA, and the play areas, the sports areas, and the single-family homes. As you know, there are lots of multifamily homes, nicely done, very well occupied, and here are pictures of some of those. Some of the traits of the area that initial observation is between, we see a lot of single family and multifamily residential, we see a lot of big boxes, Arizona Mills Mall, IKEA, Costco, industrial uses, Emerald Center, Autoplex, canals, Western Highline, Lateral, Kyrene Brands, Tempe Sports Complex. You also see quite a few vacant sites. And then the Union Pacific Railway tracks are also prominent. The power generating stations and Arizona Cardinals headquarters are some of the main elements that one can observe. Okay, so with this, I will hand to Jacob Payne to talk about the kickoff survey and the input highlights.
Thank you, Ambika. So as you mentioned a little earlier, we did have a survey that was open following our kickoff meeting. So this survey was open from the 24th of January until the 16th of February. So I'm going to go over some of the highlights of some of the questions and the answers that we received from this survey. There's going to be a complete summary of this information posted on our project page coming soon, the next couple days. So just for starters, we got 118 responses on this survey, and this is kind of a breakdown of some of the demographic information. So as you can see, majority of the respondents either live, work, or do both in this character area. And we got a pretty good spread across all of the age cohorts that we asked for information on. So this is a look at a question relating to priorities and the types of things that people feel are important in this area. So as you can see, something that comes up a lot is a very important topic in this area and in Tempe in general is about heat mitigation, and going hand in hand with that about enhancing streetscapes, offering better shade, better bus shelters, things of that nature. Of course, the canals and multi-use paths are also very important to this part of Tempe as there's a lot of them present. And then moving, further down, there's things like housing affordability, focusing on sustainability enhancements in the public areas like parks, aging in place, which I'll get into more detail about what that concept is later on. And then some things like support for historic preservation and the arts. So this is a question where we were asking what types of land uses that people want to see promoted in the area. So as you can see, the highest ranking one by far is the open space, emphasis on retaining those open spaces, improving them, making sure that there's ample space that's, available for recreation purposes. Coming in second, there's an emphasis on getting to see more residential, more multifamily. That kind of runs in tandem with the idea of housing affordability. And then, coming in third about their tide is people wanting to see more commercial opportunities, whether that be retail stores or more restaurants, as well as people saying that they feel that the land uses that they have in the area are fine and they'd like to see it remain that way. So this question relating to design elements that people want to see enhanced. So kind of matching what we've seen in the other ones, people like pedestrian-oriented principles, making sure that, it's comfortable to walk places. You've got shade, benches to rest. The emphasis on ground cover and plant species. Having a recommended species list is going to be part of the character area. Landscaping plays a big role in making places and keeping things consistent. And then coming in third there is more about the canal-oriented design principles. So making, spaces that orient near canals to make it as a more welcoming environment to come to, or, walk along the canal to a business or things like that. This question down here at the bottom is kind of asking, what does this area, is it conducive to, people wanting to live or conduct business or invest their money in? Does it have the types of businesses? Does it have the types of amenities, open spaces and infrastructure that people look for when choosing places to locate? So you can see there's a 60% yes, 20% and no, and 20% and not sure. So our activity that we have today is called Dotocracy. So as Ambika explained, that's a combination of the word dot and democracy. This is an activity that helps us to get some idea of what the priorities of the community are. To summarize, it's basically a voting system. We've got a sort of modified version of it here for the virtual meeting format, but the idea remains the same. You get dots or votes that you're allocated, and you get to choose which ideas that are important to you using those votes. The way that the survey will work, and we'll launch it in a little bit after I give some background about what the categories are going to be. You'll have, I think it's 16 or 17 different priorities, and you'll get to select 4 of them that you feel are the most important. And then we'll look at those results and we'll have a discussion about, why you feel that way or what types of things that you can think of that would be ideas to help support moving forward with that. As we did last time following the meeting, we're going to open a survey online that'll be open until April 1st. The survey is going to be very similar to the activity that you're doing here today, where it's kind of matching that Dotocracy theme of voting for your priorities in this area. So these are a look at the priority areas. So I've just got them listed out here, but I'll give an idea about what it is that we our meaning when we say these things. So that first one being shade, that's, emphasis on either structural shade on buildings as canopies, bus shelters, things like that, but also shade in landscaping, having ample trees, large trees that, provide the shade that people would be able to use rather than maybe things like palm trees or other trees that are a little bit more sparse. Connectivity relating to, being able to move places efficiently and conveniently. That could be, walking, biking, even driving, connecting places to other places in an efficient manner. Quality development relates to building materials and architecture. So talking about how we want aesthetics in the area to be. We want, good quality materials, things like brick, different materials than just seeing like plain stucco, architecturally interesting buildings. Mobility, kind of relating to connectivity, but mobility has more of an emphasis on accessibility, making sure that places are, able to be accessed by people who might be mobility impaired. Might have a mobility assisting vehicle or things like that, making sure that the area is able to be accessed and moved through by people of all sorts of ability. Housing relating to both affordability and typology. So wanting to promote having more housing available, more affordable housing available, generally of that sort. Passive natural systems. This could be in a building or in a landscape. These are systems that, they're more sustainable than some typical systems we might see in buildings in the past. Things like landscapes that collect rainwater or use, runoff from an air conditioning to water them. Different passive systems in buildings like green roofs, things that are emerging technologies in sustainability and building design. Extreme heat management, so that relating to the effects of climate change and the future of the Phoenix area might be a little warmer. So what can we do to ensure that people remain comfortable both inside and outside? So this kind of is a merger of some of these other topics like shade and other like natural systems in building, but just to have resources also like places that people can go to get water or as a respite if it's a really hot day and they need to be inside. So extreme heat management is about the programming and new systems in order to cope with that situation as we move forward. Canal-oriented design, as I talked about a little bit earlier, this character has a lot of canal spaces. So canal-oriented design relating to new buildings, making them have more of interaction with the canals and the trails, offering ways to arrive to a business that might not involve, driving there, more integrated spaces with the canals. Open space, like we talked about, those are all the parks and the trails, focusing on, improvements in those spaces, retaining those spaces, looking for, new open space opportunities, whether that be like a new public space or a new private open space. Public art, that could be installations in, the city right of way, in parks, on sides of streets, or also in private development, art structures on the sides of buildings, in parking lots. Just imagine, art as a component of development and a component of the public realm. Streetscaping having mainly to do with landscaping, but also, things like sidewalk design, even streetlights and things like that go into placemaking principles for creating character for an area. Historic preservation, about protecting older buildings, remaining character for architectural styles that might not be very popular anymore, but that at one point were very significant to a period in history. Aging in place is a very big topic, especially for a character area that we know has an older population on average than the city. The idea of aging in place is to provide amenities, businesses, and overall design that's conducive for people of all ages. so that as residents get older, they can still find those things that they, you know, as their priorities change, they can still find those things that they want to be able to do, and be able to move around comfortably and not be, you know, more privy to move somewhere else that might have those things. So aging in place about retaining your current home and wanting to stay there as you age, but making sure that your neighborhood, you know, allows for you to continue to do the things that you would like to do. Landscape treatments, as I mentioned earlier, character areas contain a plant palette that's based on historic plants used in the area, things that are desert plants, things that we want to promote new development to include in their landscaping in order to keep a cohesive feel for the area. Green infrastructure is something that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier about stormwater systems, but green infrastructure also can be, you know, part of building design, streetscape design. There's all sorts of new technologies, emerging things that are ways to, you know, promote more sustainability in our infrastructure. And that last bullet about balancing land uses, that is relating to, you know, keeping a balance of commercial spaces, industrial spaces, open spaces, residential spaces in a way that, you know, makes the community function as best it can. So with that, I'll go into, there's a couple questions that kind of are prompting you to think about, you know, what it is that you prioritize, and then we'll launch our activity and we can participate in that. And then I have a couple more slides about the timeline moving forward here for this process, and then we can open it up for a question and answer. So that survey just launched. If you want to go and have a look at it while that's going, I'll just go through these questions. It's about, you know, the priorities that we've listed. What do you feel would be best to serve the interests of the community? And if there's any priorities that we didn't list that you think are important for better serving the community, let us know what those are, and you can type them in the chat. And I know there's a question in the chat, and I'll get to that when we get to the question and answer. I haven't forgotten it.
And to basically don't feel pressure like this is, if you think of something now, the official results you'll want to do on the actual survey. This is just more to aid in our discussion. So feel free, if you change your mind, it's not set in stone or anything. You'll be able to do your survey after our meeting. And on the priorities, if you can just pick 4. I know it lets you pick more than that, but if you can just pick 4. And we'll probably leave it open for 1 more minute before we close it out. All right, and I'm going to close it in about 10 seconds. Okay, perfect. Ending poll.
All right, thank you, Brenda. So I'll pull up those results and we'll talk a little bit about them. But first, I want to go over the timeline for this project and what we're doing next and where this is going to end up. So this is a look at our timeline. So where we are right now is about this third green dot in right here, where we're in March. So this is our second public meeting. And then coming up this month, we will be meeting with some focus groups in the area. So we have a focus group that's going to be meeting with some faith organizations and nonprofits, a focus group with some of the members of the business community, And then not listed on here, but we're also having a focus group meeting with the senior community in the area as well to talk about priorities of that demographic. And then in March and April, we'll be also doing presentations to many of the city's boards and commissions. Some of those boards and commissions include the Historic Preservation Commission, the Arts and Culture Commission, the Sustainability Commission, Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and we'll be meeting with the Development Review Commission as well in a study session of their meeting. And then moving from then in late April, early May, we'll have a first draft of the plan released. And following that, we'll have some more public involvement about the draft and any types of changes or things we might have missed. We'll have opportunities for input from you, the residents and stakeholders on that. And then we're looking to get this, revised through the drafts with public meetings, aiming for a city council adoption towards the end of the year in October, November. So we've already been having meetings since about a month ago. We had our first kickoff meeting, and then we've been at info tables in some of the parks and other places in your neighborhoods. You might have seen us there. If not, we will be continuing to do little activities like that and all sorts of meetings upcoming. So these are our Dotocracy meetings. So we have this one that we just conducted today, and then tomorrow we'll be doing one in person at the Salea Park in the area. That'll be at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And then, as I mentioned, we got some focus group meetings with the senior community, business community, and then some of the faith and nonprofit organizations in the area. And then I already spoke about these, but these are some of those boards and commission meetings that are upcoming, and we'll have some dates for those as well. I think almost all of them are this month. So we'll be very busy with this project. And here's our contact information. And with that, I think we can open up to question and answer and review the results of that activity. And Bika, do you want to pull up the results of the activity? We can start some discussion and go into some questions.
You're talking about Brenda?
Either one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and I have, can you all see the results of the survey? It says, the first one we'll just do really quickly. Did you attend the previous meeting? So it looks like some people attended online and in person. We only got 3 answers. And then
I can't see that. It's not up on the screen.
Oh, it's not up on the screen.
No, it's still the questions and discussion slide.
Oh, okay. Let's see. We sometimes, I apologize. Looks like we're having a technical difficulty on that. But I'll share with you what the priorities are. Hold on a second. Let me try to screenshot it and put it in the chat. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, I think since it's a Zoom window, it's not going to show. I have it in the middle of my screen that I'm sharing, but since it's part of Zoom, it's just not.
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Hold on a sec. Okay. Let me share that. Let me share verbally. Let's share balanced land uses. 2 out of 3 people. Canal-oriented design, 2 out of 3 people. Let's see, extreme heat management, 2 out of 3. Historic preservation, 1 out of 3. Housing, 1 out of 3. Public art, 2 out of 3. Streetscapes, 1 out of 3. And then other, type in the chat. We had 1 out of 3.
And the other, it looks like the other one in the chat was about road improvements, so relating to arterial roads and also the neighborhood streets.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So
Great.
yeah, that is a good discussion start point.
Sure. And then before we get there too, sorry, Brenda, but before we get there too, I'll answer Franklin's question in the chat about, he's asking that since the Kyrene office is in this character area, does that employment total include every employee who might actually be working in Chandler or Phoenix at those schools and facilities? So the data that I used for these graphics came from Maricopa Association of Government, and they relate the employees to the site. So that should be the amount of employees who either work on site at that location or that is their main office location. They might visit other sites, but that is the location of their office.
Thanks for clarifying, Jacob. I wasn't sure if because, like the district office is like, probably where like payroll goes through or something.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so feel free to unmute yourself if or raise your hand if you'd like to chime in, and we can discuss these. Or Jacob, I'm not sure exactly what if you had any more specific questions, like if you wanted to do a follow up on balanced land use or something. Go ahead, Phil Darling. Phil Darling.
Yeah, thank you. I met Jacob at the park, the last booth that was available for folks to come and stop by. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the time that you spent. We spent enough time to where we went from the abstract and very vague coming from me down to drilling down into the details enough to get like more specific. And then reading more on the web page, the same one as the link that was provided in this chat, gives me a much better picture of what the overall goal is for character 6. And it also gives me an idea of why it seemed like we were going more with multifamily in the area and what the stated goals are. And so it kind of tempered some of what I felt concerned, but now it was more coming from a place of not understanding, and Jacob and then your webpage really helped contextualize. So I kind of understand what's trying to be accomplished. The major thing is I just want to give my biased input, my experience. I moved into Sierra, the neighborhood in the very southwest corner of character 6. I moved in December 2016. And then slowly I noticed a ramp up in traffic noise. I could hear more stuff going on Priest from my development. I heard a lot more stuff between my development and the one to the north. I'm backed up to the walking path. And then there started to be motor vehicle traffic on the walking path, and just in general, it seemed like the area was buzzing a little bit more. And then, police sirens and things that reminded me of where I grew up in California. So for a while now, I've been wondering, what is going on? I think I understand better. And Jacob was really great with his time. He answered in person and then thoroughly via email that there is a collaboration effort between planning and law enforcement. So if you add several unit structures, there's going to be needs for all sorts of services, especially law enforcement. So an area like my neighborhood, my feedback to the booth that I stopped by is I would like to see more patrol and enforcement from the Tempe Police Department. I do see the Chandler Police driving up and down Priest because that's the cutoff of Tempe and Chandler. But as I drive, just as an example, and then I'll finish up with this example, as I drive from my home farther north in Tempe, say I drive north on Priest and I turn right on Warner and I head east and I drive to rural and I turn left, so I'm going north on rural, I start noticing increases in vagrancy and what looks to be homelessness, maybe you name it, just kind of like more riffraff. You get up past Guadalupe, you go past Broadway, get to Southern, you make a left, go over to Mill, and then if you drive north on Mill, you're seeing a lot of that sort of stuff until you get close to the campus. And once you're kind of in the safe haven of the campus, it's mostly you see business people, student type people. And what I am worried is that whole stretch from south of ASU down to like north of Elliott, north of Guadalupe. I'd certainly like to hope that there's some mitigation going on to kind of get that area under control. But I certainly I don't want to see that sort of thing continuing south. Finally had an opportunity to move into suburbia in a neighborhood that I was able to leave my doors unlocked when I first moved in. And then within the first 2 years, I had a couple of break-ins to cars in my driveway and then break-ins into my garage and high dollar things taken. So talking with the neighbors, that, you know, that's going to happen in any neighborhood. But my concern is like the more accessible areas are, the more people figure out what areas there are, like all these different pockets in the valley, then opportunity for criminals is more provided. And I know that the master planning, all this stuff is going in and being figured, but that was that's my biased input, and that's where I'm coming from, more a place of concern. And I've moved past the stage of like not knowing, so I feel more empowered, more informed now. I want to thank you all for all of that, and I'm just giving you my honest input. My fear is, you know, this is kind of moving farther south, and then it's going to be in my neighborhood by the time we get to the end of this 2050 planning cycle of becoming a 20-minute city in character 2 and character 6. That's my time. Thank you for entertaining me.
Jacob, let me go ahead and do some initial response, and then maybe you can also chime in, and maybe Ryan or someone. So, Philip, we really appreciate your concern, all really valid points. We do hear it in many different settings, especially when we were doing the general plan the last 2 years. This was one of the major things that we heard from a lot of people. And you will see that in the general plan, the public safety aspect has been really strengthened in terms of the high-level policies, working with the police department, working with our housing division, the homelessness groups of people that we work on. So this is something that the city is very much aware and does want to tackle. We want to make Tempe safe and good for everyone. In addition to that, we also have what we call crime prevention through environmental design. We actually have a principal planner that heads that particular division in the code compliance. And we want to make sure that any new proposals or any new redevelopment proposals are also very careful in terms of avoiding any sort of, you know, criminal behavior that people might be able to do through public surveillance and through a proper design and so on. So all these points are very important and very well taken care of. And today we will have someone from housing division that have a really much better grasp of the homelessness, that is very actively they are working on that issue. And as a matter of fact, what we see in terms of the data is that issue somehow is kind of, you know, there's slight improvement on that issue from the city's perspective. But I do want to kind of, you know, go back to the scope of the character area planning, which is much more in design, but these things are very important input. So what we'll do is we do have people working both from the police department, also from the housing department with us. We'll relay some of these ideas to them, and if there's something that they need to kind of get in touch with you, they will do that. But also in the character area plan, we will, although it talks more about design and planning, we will kind of at least highlight some of these issues that these are of concerns. And down the road, there should be something that should be kind of worked on in the other plans. As you know, City of Tempe has many, many different plans and many, many different policies. So they're all interconnected. From the customer point of view, I think you raise it whenever you get a really good platform like this, and we hear it. So we really appreciate that. Anything that you want to add, Jacob or Ryan, please go ahead and do that.
I thought that was very well said, Ambika.
Excellent, thank you. Next up, we have a hand raised by David Sokolowski. Please feel free, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, then I have a comment. You were talking about the focus groups, and I was wondering to hear more about that because I think the age breakdown was pretty even in terms of like, it was like 25% young, 25% middle-aged, 25% older. It was all very even. But you were talking about doing a focus group for seniors. And so I was wondering about the other type of focus groups you're doing. And also on top of that, because it was like 50% of the community was minority or non-white. And so I'm trying to understand if you're going to do a focus group for those groups for Black and Asian communities, because a lot of times what ends up happening is they're a larger proportion of the community, but they basically get 0% of the input.
Thank you. That's a good question. I can take that one. The request for the senior discussion, more of a discussion really, came as a result of our first online meeting on January 24th, and it was a specific request. So although it's extremely challenging to find a whole bunch of groups of seniors that have the time and ability to come to meet together, we're putting that there as an option, and we'll have, it'll be a smaller type of focus group. In regards to reaching the additional demographics, you are right. It's a challenge, not just on this topic, but on a lot of different topics. So that's why we are doing the tabling events and going out to different tabling events in the community. And also, for this round of the survey, I don't think that you live in that character area, so you would not have received the postcard, but we are tying some incentives to participate in the survey and offering a couple different movie tickets as a possibility, like a chance to win movie tickets. And we'll be also going out into the community again to where these different diverse populations are at. Instead of holding an in-person meeting and in-person focus group, we're going out to where people are at. And so we're hoping to boost those numbers and to just do our best to reach out. At the end of the day, can't really, force someone to do a survey, but we definitely want them to. So I hope that answers your question, David, but feel free to do a follow-up if you'd like.
Well, I just think like, for example, when we talk about like art, it would be helpful to go to the Black and the Asian community and ask, it's like specifically what type of art would you like to see? Where would you like to see it? And try to get as specific and as close as possible to make sure that they're being heard and they're being represented. But my other comment was as far as the plan in general, because one of my big concerns is that I see all of these themes where it's like aging in place. That applies to every area in Tempe, that we're not going to have a place where you can't age in place. Walkability, like the 20-minute city plan, that's citywide. It's not in any specific character area. We expect that the whole city would be walkable. The same thing with sustainability, like the green building codes, as far as I understand, that's citywide. So it doesn't really matter on which character area you're in. We expect that green building codes will be automatically applied. Things like even the plant palette, as far as I can see, there's basically like a 95 to 100% identical copy of each plant palette in each character area. There might be one plant that's different, but for the most part, they're all completely identical. So what I would really hope and challenge you to do is to look at what specifically is unique to this area only, and what is the unique character for this area. Because when I think about culture, I'm not thinking about like water and electricity. That's not culture. And I don't really think of that in terms of like walkability or something like that. So.
Thank you, David. I will just add a couple of things to what Brenda said, and then I'll also kind of talk about what the questions that you raised, which are very valid. So one of the focus groups is actually on the 5th is on the seniors, who has mainly the point that you raised. There have been on the site some discussions about aging in place, concerns about some of the senior people. So we wanted to kind of specifically talk to that people on that topic and many other topics that might be of interest to them. But obviously, you have a very valid point that we need to reach out to many more people. That's why we're going to many events. And if you see the list of the meetings that we have, it is actually pretty marathon-like. So we do appreciate that. Now, in terms of the many of the common characteristics within City of Tempe, in terms of the planning and design principles for walkability, 20-minute city, plant palettes, and so on. That's a very valid point, David. I mean, these character areas are very small, and even the City of Tempe is like a medium-sized city. So many things are very common, but whenever we do a character area plan, there might be some overlap, but we try to be as specific as we can. So in the plant palette, actually, if you look at all the character area plants, the plant palettes there is only there's overlap, but there are also some unique features that we try to find and then ascertain. And also the walkability and so on are also very uniquely implemented in different areas on this place, particularly because there are 3 different canals and canal paths, and seems to be one of the priorities. So we'll be focusing a little more on that one. So there will be a little more emphasis on any specific character area that is demanded. But you're right that many things are also kind of common across the character area, and they're kind of rightfully so because we live in the same city and things are not always all that different. So I hope that that helps, but we appreciate your comment and concerns.
Thank you. It looks like Franklin, you are next. Feel free to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks again for having this. Just a few things that I would like to chime in on. First, on the housing question, I'm in the San Sonoma community at Priest and Warner, and I think it's also important just to make sure we preserve the other neighborhoods around. And I think it's great that we have the option here to rent I'm in a 3-story, I think all the buildings in my complex are 3 stories. I don't think we want anything taller than that because that would really kind of start changing the character of our area down here. I mean, I understand where higher density makes more sense in North Tempe, but I know you guys, I know in the general plan and things you have the how many people per acre. So whatever kind of the area is for kind of the moderate, low to moderate development for housing is probably the best for down here. One thing I'll chime in since I put the comment about the roads. I work at SRP's main office near Papago Park. So I'm in a 3-story building, Philip. So maybe there's something else, but it's only 3 here. But it's hard to get to work. The I-10 is congested because Priest goes through Guadalupe. It takes a while. Lately, I've been driving up Priest, which has a lot of potholes, over on Warner to Kyrene up until it dead ends into I know it jogs over, but until it kind of ends at baseline. Then I go over, then I take Hardy all the way up to Rio Salado before coming back over to Priest and taking that the rest of the way up to Priest and Center Parkway where SRP's headquarters is. So anything to kind of continue improving the traffic flow would be appreciated. I know part of that's Guadalupe where Priest goes through, so you have a limited ability there, but anything to make that easier would be helpful. And then one other just last question. I think I asked April at the other meeting, and I didn't see this on the list as employers, the Target kind of corporate office in the Emerald Center looks like it's closed. Just curious, or maybe you found that, Jacob, going through your research, if that's kind of closed for good or what's going on with that building there. Okay, that's about it. Thanks for doing this. I will say it's too bad your next thing is tomorrow because Tempe Cares is also taking place tomorrow. So that might, some people might be double booked, but thanks for having this event.
Thanks, Franklin. April, did you, I think she's on the call. Did you ever find out about the Target office? I think I was able to check and see that it was in fact no longer there, but I think if April heard anything else, then she might be a better source of authority on that. or maybe
So,
Ryan might know.
maybe April might jump in, but yeah, thanks, Jacob, for that, and thanks also for that questions. I just wanted to kind of add, we only have a couple of minutes to add a couple of things on some of the things that you raised, which are very important. City of Tempe will be starting the transportation master plan. It usually waits until the general plan is ratified or adopted. So very soon, the transportation master plan would be kind of, they will be talking to many people and coming to the community about some of the issues that you raised. And then obviously we'll also make a mention of that in the character area plan in terms of your preference, and whatever we can, in the character area plan level, we can put the policies and principles, we'll do that. But like I said, majority of the character area plan is much to do with the character, the design principles, but we will take that into account. But there's going to be a really good opportunity within the transportation master plan to talk about some of these issues, to think of another 10 years on how to ease the transportation mechanism. And also in terms of the building heights and density, it is controlled by the general plan, like one of the slides that we showed before. We don't control the height, and we don't really go into the density of the general plan in the character area plan because it is in the general plan. But whenever we can make a mention of that preference by the community in the plan. And whenever there are like proposals that are coming forward, because every time the heights are determined by the zoning and people might have to do a rezoning and public input process, character area plan is also one of the things that kind of weighs into it. So those are really good points. We'll take that into consideration, but the transportation master plan upcoming, I think, will be a really good opportunity to talk about some of these issues much more in detail, but we'll make a mention of that in the character area plan also.
Yeah, and Mika, thank you too. I just wanted to follow up with Franklin's comment as well too. I think maybe there's an opportunity to tie in the mobility section if you know, talking about maintenance of our mobility areas that do include streets with that respect, and that could be a tie-in to those areas. I was curious too from Franklin as well on the subject of housing. Do you have an interest to see certain types of housing types that might be missing in the area that could be introduced? And I say housing types for like different design typologies, whether it's townhome styles, vertical walk-ups, patio homes, or are you looking still for detached single-family product?
I would say probably, thanks Ryan for asking. I think a little of both. I know there's definitely kind of that big lot at, I think that's Guadalupe and that Guadalupe and Kyrene by the Tempe Union office. There's kind of that big open lot on that corner. I think definitely the starter homes, not that we don't also want the single family detached, but I think, yeah, kind of the patio home, starter homes, I think that's something that's kind of missing in the area. And I think that's a great combination, is both for people starting off, kind of, you know, getting their first home outside of an apartment, but then also kind of an option for that aging in place for seniors who are looking to downsize. They still want something a little bigger than an apartment, but they still want to stay in the city of Tempe and have, you know, less yard to maintain and kind of, you know, shed some of those other things tied with home ownership. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for your feedback. We're about a minute past our meeting time. Just wanted to open it up for any final questions or comments. Feel free to unmute if you'd like to do so. I do want to read Dr. Marlo.
Yeah. Just wanted to add that if you something that you can think of later on, either through a survey or shoot us an email or give us a call, all these things are really very important for us to reflect into the character area plan. So just it's going to be open for a long period of time. Brenda.
Yeah, thank you. Good point. I did share the link to the survey in the chat. So please share with your friends and neighbors, and please stop by the park tomorrow if you're in the area. You can even go if you wanted to before you go to the Cares Festival or to other activities, we'd love to see you. If you have any pets, please bring those. We like to see those as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude. We will share the presentation online, the public input summary, and thank you all for making the time, today to make time for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.